there's a lot to unpack between what Papadopoulos said to me last week, that the only thing the New York Times got wrong is it wasn't an FBI spy.
Right.
And how did we get to a counterintelligence investigation, which was Lindsey Graham's question to the Attorney General?
Well, there was a lot of lying and spying going on, principally by the FBI and probably the CIA. In fact, Lying and Spying is the title of one of the chapters of the forthcoming book. It'll be out in a few months. But it looks like George Papadopoulos, a fairly naive young guy, was absolutely set up by the FBI and intelligence agencies. He's fed phony information from this guy Massoud, who has connections to the FBI and Western intelligence sources, who leans over a breakfast one day and says, "Oh, the Russians have dirt on Hillary Clinton. They've got her emails." Papadopoulos is then suddenly contacted by a bunch of different people, including Alexander Downer. He didn't just run into him in a bar. It was a setup.
The Australian diplomat.
That's right. Downer pulls out a phone and starts apparently tape recording with leading questions. "George, you're the middleman with Russia and Trump. George, you were involved in the hacking of Hillary Clinton's emails. George, tell us about the collusion going on."
None of which was true.
And Papadopoulos is like, "What are you, nuts?" And he eventually says, "I have nothing to do with this. I'm out of here." Fast forward a few months, and you got Halper, who's on the FBI payroll. You've got Azra Turk. They both do the same thing. They sit him down. They seemingly tape record him with leading questions, trying to set him up. And this was used as part of the pretext to investigate Donald Trump, along with the phony dossier that the FBI knew was fabricated. They couldn't verify it. They didn't care. They used both of those to go after Trump.
All right, David Schoen, I think now, everybody had this, collective gasp that the Attorney General said the word spying. As he said, it's not a pejorative. I mean, we spy on them, meaning our enemies. They spy on us. The thing that flabbergasts me is that we have not created in over 3 or 4 decades now the ability to prevent outside countries from getting our most sensitive materials, which heightens the severity of why the Hillary Clinton email server in a mom-and-pop bathroom closet with classified top-secret information on it was such an important national security issue. But what we're seeing here now is between the FISA warrant, the Papadopoulos issue, now we add the blonde, flirtatious bombshell to the equation, and we've got multiple times now with multiple spies and multiple attempts to get inside the Trump campaign.
Right. Well, I think the story that you have uncovered now for the past several months, and that Greg wrote clearly about, and is going to write more clearly about, is that the problem right now that we face is getting our own house in order. We have a politicized Department of Justice. Leadership sets the agenda. If we know now, as we do, and you have proven without any question, that the leadership at the FBI, leadership of our intelligence agencies were willing to abuse the FISA court, the most secret court in the land, the most intrusive court in the land. And they gave license then to any other operatives to go out and spy on the Trump campaign to suit their agenda, which was ensure that Donald Trump never was elected president. Everything is turned on its head. If there is evidence of spying, it came from the Clinton campaign. If there's evidence of spying, it came from our own Justice Department. So while we obviously have to be vigilant about foreign governments intruding in our affairs and hacking our computers, right now we have to get our own house in order and make sure that this never, ever happens again.
Well, I agree with all of that. We're now heading into whether I want to go back to last week, and I know I keep highlighting this, when Lindsey Graham goes through a list, Greg,
right,
of, what are things we need to now investigate, what we need to look into. And the last thing is, he goes through a whole litany of questions about the Mueller report. And no, Mueller's dead. Anything we hear from here on out about the Mueller report is over. It's all noise.
Do you share my concerns about the FISA warrant process?
Yes.
Do you share my concerns about the counterintelligence investigation, how it was opened and why it was opened?
Yes.
you share my concerns that the lack of professionalism in the Clinton email investigation is something we should all look at?
Yes.
Do you expect to change your mind about the bottom line conclusions of the Mueller report?
No.
Do you think the president's campaign in 2016 was thoroughly looked at in terms of whether or not they colluded with the Russians?
Yes.
And the answer is no, according to Bob Mueller.
That's right.
He couldn't decide about obstruction. You did. Is that correct?
That's right.
You feel good about your decision?
Absolutely.
That says it all to me, Greg, is that basically everything you, me, and our ensemble cast, including David and so many others, which was really a small group of us, versus the 99.9% that went down the Russia hoax rabbit hole with lies and conspiracies, we were right the whole time.
Oh, absolutely. And, we always knew there was no evidence obstruction of collusion, and Mueller found it. No evidence. That's what he found in his report. And as for obstruction, it is not obstruction if the president is exercising his constitutional authority to fire somebody. You cannot take an improper purpose and convert an otherwise lawful act into a crime, period. Can a president be charged with it? Of course he can. For destruction of evidence, for concealing witnesses, for other acts, but not for exercising constitutional authority.
Stay right there. Gregg Jarrett, David Schoen will continue more on the other side. And as we continue, Gregg Jarrett and also attorney David Schoen. All right, David, we've given our list of where this is going. I just played before the break everything that the Attorney General, we have the Attorney General now in investigation. We have the Inspector General FISA abuse investigation. We have the leaking investigation with Huber. It seems that the Attorney General now is literally going into every aspect, going back to the rigged investigation into Hillary, through FISA abuse, through an attempt to unseat a duly elected president. I believe this is going to bear a lot of fruit, and a lot of top names, if there's justice, will be in deep legal trouble.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the reason that vocal members of Congress are coming after Mr. Barr. They'd like to eliminate Mr. Barr from the process and hope for someone who's going to be intimidated out of that investigation, because there is a great deal to fear from that investigation. I'm hoping Mr. Barr stands strong, as he has said he will.
Now, Greg, you have your own list, but really it does. If we're going to have equal justice, equal application of our laws, and remain a constitutional republic, we better start with Hillary's rigged investigation. Not out of revenge. It's just simple, fundamental, equal justice issues.
If law enforcement and government officials were using their positions to ignore the law and clear somebody of a crime for political reasons, that's a whole host of crimes, including obstruction of justice.
What about their desire to have Mueller testify before Congress? Doesn't he work for Barr on this case?
He does, and Barr would have some say in it, although he said last week when he testified, I have no problem with Mueller testifying. The president cannot invoke executive privilege because he really had no conversations with Mueller. He answered some questions.
But doesn't the statute say that he's to report to Congress? He reports directly to the Attorney General?
Yeah, and it's up to the Attorney General. But as I say, Barr said, I have no problem with Mueller testifying. The question is, does Mueller even want to testify? We don't really know the answer to that question.
Does Mueller have an answer to the question, when did you know that there was no collusion?
That would be the principal question that I would ask him, is you've known for more than a year, haven't you, that there was no evidence?
How do you know that he's known for more than a year?
Because he had that conversation with one of the president's attorneys and readily admitted they had no evidence of collusion. The question is, why would you put the American public and this president
because he wants another shot at a redo to make it seem worse than it was. David, you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that, and here's what I agree with very strongly. Bob Mueller, if he's a man of integrity, must refuse to testify. He doesn't have the right to testify. Listen, the law was changed in 1999. Before 1999,
by Democrats.
That by Democrats, by the Clinton administration. Before 1999, in the 1977 law, people like Jerry Nadler and Chuck Schumer could run their mouths and say, we want the special counsel before us. He owes us a duty. Because the special counsel owed them a duty. Congress could appoint or remove the special investigator at that time. That's not the case. They intentionally changed the law.
Yeah, I mean, Gerald Nadler didn't even want the Starr report out. All right, thank you both.